We've witnessed the rise of some old rivalries, rebirth of some rivalries over the years. Boston Toronto comes to mind as one that would have been rivals way back in original 6 days, and that rivalry is back. And of course, I talked about the Battle of Alberta and that rivalry. So now I'm going with Philadelphia and Montreal. Why? Because when I was a kid, as a teenager, these series were insane. Now, before I started watching hockey, Montreal beat Philadelphia relatively easily. 5 games in 1972-73. They lost game one, 5-4 in overtime, and then they won 4-3, 2-1, 4-1, and 5-3. There was a grand total of 133 penalty minutes over the 5 game series. So nothing really too ugly that happened in that. And of course, 74 and 75, Philadelphia wins the Stanley Cup. The interesting thing is, neither year did they have to face the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal Canadiens and Philadelphia Flyers didn't meet again until 76. Where Montreal ended the Philadelphia chance for a dynasty and started one of their own, where they would win 5 in a row. 76, 77, 78, 79, 4 in a row. I know they have the 5 in a row record, and that's not when it was. It wasn't 77, 70. Yeah. So 76, they won 4-3, 2-1, 3-2, and 5-3. 108 penalty minutes. Of course, they would be Stanley Cup champions until 1980. When the New York Islanders cast them aside, and of course the Islanders and the Flyers have a whole feud of their own. So the question may be, so with those two series of 108 penalty minutes and 133 penalty minutes, why are we going to talk about the Flyers in Montreal? Because in 87 and 89, these series were so explosive and so full of hate that you got to kind of talk about them. And yet, the penalty minutes numbers aren't that high. So throughout the series, 18 penalty minutes in the first game, which was a 4-3 win for Philadelphia. Then they lose 5-2 in the second game, 46 penalty minutes in that one. 4-3 win in game 3, 18 penalty minutes in that one. Game 4, they won 6-3, 56 penalty minutes in that one. Game 7, a 5-2 loss, as Montreal stayed in the series, 31 penalty minutes in that one. Only 58 penalty minutes in game 6. Now, I've talked about the brawl before. I've talked about the brawl as recently as a few weeks ago. So I'm going to leave the brawl part out. I will link in at the end of this video to the pregame brawl discussion and that series that led up to that weird whole Claude Lemieux, don't shoot it into the empty net. Claude Lemieux, all I heard was shoot it into the empty net. No, we said don't shoot it into the empty net, and Corson saying, I'll come with you, I'll help you shoot it into the empty net in the pregame skate. And as soon as that happened, insanity took place to the point where somebody's out there fighting in flip-flops. And the hate was real. And then in 1988, they took a break from each other. They didn't meet each other in the playoffs. 1989, they meet again. Now, game 1, there's only 44 penalty minutes. It's won 3-1 by the Philadelphia Flyers. But Chris Chelios didn't impress the Philadelphia Flyers. Didn't impress management. Didn't impress Bobby Clarke. Chris Chelios with an elbow to the head on Brian Propp. I guess you can go and look it up if you'd like. I don't know whether or not it'd be a suspension in today's game. And anytime we talk about that, people say, it doesn't matter if it would have been a suspension in today's game. It wasn't a suspension then. But the Flyers were choked. The Flyers were choked, and to their credit, they kept their wits about them for most of the series. Of course, that would change. Game 2, the Montreal Canadiens win 3-0, 32 penalty minutes in that game. Game 3, they win 5-1, 36 penalty minutes in that game. Game 4, they win 3-0, 36 minutes in penalties in that game. So Patrick Roy having an excellent series, conference finals as they get set to go to the Stanley Cup finals to face the Calgary Flames. Much like Philadelphia in the series before had won the conference finals to go on to play against the Edmonton Oilers. You have to play a team, I guess, out of Alberta to win this round. 28 penalty minutes in game 5, but Philadelphia won that game 2-1. So we go to game 6. Now, your final score is 4-2 for Montreal, and the final number of penalty minutes is 68. That doesn't tell you exactly what happened in this game. Hextall tried to destroy Chris Chelios' life. He came out of the net and he swung his stick at Chelios. Now, Flyers fans are going to tell you, yeah, that was for the best. I remember as a hockey fan being horrified. What happened is that the game's running down, the time's running out, and it's clear that Montreal's going to win the game. Philadelphia is probably thinking about pulling the goalie, And then Chelios with an intentional offside. So an intentional offside means it goes to the other end of the ice, but you get a whistle. So Chelios didn't care that it was an intentional offside. As soon as Hextall hears the whistle, he decides, I'm going to go out and fight Chelios. Now, Hextall says, I didn't intend to hurt Chelios. Swinging a goalie stick like that leads me to think maybe he did. Now, the Flyers will point out that Dino Ciccarelli was guilty of a vicious stick swinging incident that didn't get as many games as Hextall did. Hextall got 12 games for that stick swinging. And I remember the next day in my science class in high school, because that's how this works in Canada, where it came up in science class, what'd you think of the game last night? And we all started talking about Hextall, and we were debating about how many games should he get. And the debate being, if a goalie swings his stick at a guy's head like that, and luckily for Chelios, it didn't connect, should he be allowed to stay in the game? That was a debate with Hextall back then, was that he was passionate, he was a tough player, sure, but does he cross the line? And our argument was that he did. In the NHL, when they handed down that 12-game suspension, Flyers fans were unhappy as they felt that it was too much, because Chelios got nothing for the head hit on prop, and at the same time, other hockey fans said that doesn't seem like it's enough. That, it's going to hit in the fall, and for Hextall, that doesn't feel like it's enough. So that's why this is on the board, is because that was the one that I remembered, and I remembered Bobby Smith leaving the ice and getting, I believe it was beer thrown at him, and Flyers fans just absolutely, these two series were the ones that showed me just how crazy Flyers fans could be during games, and I found myself cheering for Montreal in both series. Just throwing that out there, being honest. As a hockey fan, I was finding myself cheering for Montreal in both series. Because I did perceive at the time that Philadelphia was kind of a dirty team. And again, I know people are going to say, what, Flyers were dirty, but look what Chelios did. Oh, I know that now, looking back now, but at the age of 16, yeah, no, I felt that the Flyers were the dirty team. And they definitely had a reputation from the Broad Street Bully days that followed them for years after that. And when you got Bobby Clarke running the team, it's going to follow you as well, because he tended to speak before he was really thinking about what he wanted to say. So that whole think and then speak thing, sometimes he was kind of on the fence about that. Didn't think that was so important. Just say whatever you're thinking and just let them deal with it. And some people love that about Clarke as well. All right. They don't meet again in the playoffs till almost 20 years later. And I think that's criminal that they don't meet again until 2008. But not being in the same division, not always being relevant at the same time. This is a conversation we had about Calgary and Edmonton. And I think it's true of Philadelphia and Montreal as well. I can remember plenty of regular season games between these teams that have been crazy, where the scores have been insane. There's been crazy swings one way or the other. And when Philadelphia and Montreal play each other, I know it's a game I'm going to want to watch. I know I'm going to want to watch this, and I'm going to enjoy it. 2008, Philadelphia knocks aside the Montreal Canadiens with some relative ease. They lost game 1 4-3. There was only 12 penalty minutes in that one. The penalty minutes really aren't a big deal in this series. And then Philadelphia rattles off 4 straight wins. 4-2, 3-2, 4-2, and 6-4. And the ugliest it gets is 36 penalty minutes in game 3. The interesting takeaway from that series was Carey Price went 1-3 with an .856 save percentage. And he certainly heard it from fans and from the media. Marty Biron, this guy here that I'm wearing the jersey for, 4-1 in that series with a .921 save percentage. Marty Biron, quite the run there for Philadelphia. So that series was interesting. The 2010 one is as well. So this one's a round 2 series. This one's a conference final. And Philadelphia wins it going away. But the interesting thing is, this is the year of Yaroslav Halak. Jaro Halak had just gone through and knocked off 2 major opponents through rounds 1 and 2. And in round 3, they had Philadelphia, which looked like a weaker opponent. The Philadelphia Flyers kind of made it look easy against the Montreal Canadiens and against Yaroslav Halak in this series. I'm not going to say this was the series where Montreal decided, oh, we're going to go with Carey Price. But maybe. So they win at 6-0, 3-0. They lost game 3, 5-1. They win 3-0 and they win 4-2. The reason this is noteworthy, and I'm throwing this into this video because it's all part and parcel of this rivalry between the teams, is Michael Leighton went 4-1 in this series with a .950 save percentage. The ironic part is that was the year that we heard about how, well, you don't really need a great goaltender in the playoffs. And yet here's Leighton with 3 shutouts in that series and a 950 save percentage, and people arguing goaltending really isn't that important. And that was the argument at the time 10 years ago. Penalty minutes, not a problem in that series. The highest you get is game 3, where it's 44 penalty minutes, and that was the one that Montreal won out of the 5. So Leighton with the 950 save percentage compared to Halak, who was 1-4 with an 884 save percentage. And you compare that with his numbers through rounds 1 and 2, and it's crazy, because it's almost as if Philadelphia did in that series against Montreal what Washington did against Vegas, where Washington went out there and they went, oh, we know how to beat this. And they beat Marc-Andre Fleury and the Vegas Golden Knights and made it look like it was something you could do that other teams before them couldn't do. So Philadelphia went out and did what other teams before them just were unable to do. Make it look like you can beat the Montreal Canadiens. And it was an impressive series. And it's a shame these teams don't meet each other more. You want an argument to go back to 1 versus 8. I present to you Philadelphia and Montreal, who were seeds 7 and 8 in the playoffs that year, and yet met in the conference finals. So you're not always going to get the best teams facing off against each other in the conference finals from the regular season, but you're still going to get quite the interesting story anyways. So there you go. It's a rivalry that definitely was at its hottest right about here, and these teams really hated each other. And maybe at some point in time we get back to that. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And again, with these rivalries, there's really honestly almost endless possibilities to where I can go and what I can do with this series from here. And it's fun to look at. So this 89 series, odds are I'll never do a video just specifically on that series. So this is where the rivalry series is going to be fun to watch and look out for. And hopefully you guys agree, because I enjoy putting these boards together. Let me know your thoughts as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.